Good afternoon, Coolest Coast. It is time for an episode of Coffee on the Coast featuring Book Banter with librarian Laura Schreiner. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee on the Coast, an installment of Book Banter. I'm your host, Tina Prigge. So happy to see Laura Schreiner back on the show from Manitowoc Public Library. Hi, Laura.
Hi, love to see you. Look forward to this. High point of my month.
Oh, ditto, ditto. Actually, I cannot believe a month has
Well,
elapsed so quickly.
well, that's the truth. Tim reached out to me Monday and I said, is this Tina week already? It is Tina week already. I have the titles ready, but somehow I thought, oh, maybe it's next week. I don't know. I lost track a little bit, but
Yeah,
ready to
the blink
go.
of an eye. You know what? I think we lose track when we're reading good books. We
Oh,
don't realize
definitely.
how quickly the time has gone.
For
Well,
sure.
let's dive in because you've got another great lineup to recommend to us. Let's
Okay.
start with this one. It's called Codename Hélène by
Yes.
Ariel Lawhon.
Yes. Now, it says on the cover by the author of Frozen River, which many of us love.
That was a
And we
good
keep
book.
hearing accolades about the Frozen River. Fantastic book. This is a little bit older than that. Oh my gosh, it's probably, I think, every bit as good. Incredible story of a very strong New Zealander. Her name was Nancy. She's a very lengthy name. Nancy Grace. Oh my goodness, what was her name? She's got a bunch of names. I wondered if Nancy Grace, the TV personality, actually took her name from this World War II here. I don't know if Nancy Grace's real name is Nancy Grace. I'm just throwing that out there. But Nancy Grace Wake. Wake was her maiden name. She marries a gentleman named Henri Fioca. She is an intrepid Australian expat living in Paris. Her husband's very wealthy. She's kind of toyed a little bit with writing for Hearst newspapers, but because she's a woman, her name never gets attributed to any of her writings. Okay, theme there. She's very independent. She's very brash. Eventually, she gets recruited into the recruited into the French resistance. This is an interesting story in some ways because in this case, the husband stays home and she goes off to war. You don't get a lot of that, honestly. You don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
He's very proud of her. He is very supportive of her. She is smart. She is resourceful. She always wears her victory red lipstick, her Elizabeth Arden. That's her armor to wear this. She has men reporting to her. She's super strong. She's very feminine, but she's super, super strong, super smart. There's some twists. It's a World War II story. It's mostly, it's historical fiction, but she was real. She was very real. She was a little bit flawed, but she was super strong. Wow.
You know what? And flawed is okay. Who
Flaud's
among us
okay.
is not flawed, right? None of us has a perfect story to tell. So that's cool.
Exactly. It was a bestseller back when it came out in 21. So it's not new by any means. It's older than Frozen River. But wow, it's incredible. I waited months to listen to it on Libby. It's still really popular on Libby. And I think a lot of that is a reflection of Frozen River, that maybe people went back to her catalog to look at some things. She's written other things as well, but wow. I mean, then you listen to, you get through the whole thing, and there's times it just tears your heart out. You wish it could be different, but oh my gosh. It's such a well-written, beautiful tribute to a strong marriage, a strong woman, a supportive husband. Same thing as Frozen River, just a different time frame.
Yeah.
Tons of history. Many of these things really did happen. A lot of it, there's some license taken with it. She was a spy. She went by 4 different names. She was smart. She was just smart. This was a Goodreads nominee for readers' favorite historical fiction when it first came out. So it's been quietly popular, but I think Frozen River went back and put Ariel on the map. Anyways, Ariel's sources. Ariel does a ton of research. Apparently, if you listen to her talk about this, she went back and read the autobiography of Nancy. So, maybe she embellished a little bit. Nancy did. Maybe, some of this thing. She claimed at one point she rode 500 kilometers on bicycle. Maybe that's true. No one can really say for sure. All the original.
When you read a lot of stories, people had to do extraordinary things to be part of the resistance, right? And that's, I think, what helped change the tide.
Oh, sure. And how she became the most invisible was riding a bike, because apparently a woman riding a bike in Europe at that time was not a big deal, not notable, not attention getting, anything of that nature. So she rode a bike. She went by the names. She had 4 different names, and I don't remember them all. The White Mouse, Hélène, Madame Andre, I should say, and Lucienne Carlier. So she had all these different identities. Her husband was very, very proud of her, very protective of her in his way. But keep in mind, he was a very wealthy financier. He stayed back. She went off.
Did he help finance her missions and what she was involved in?
Definitely. And, there was a lot of, his father didn't approve. There were some women that were trying to break the two of them up. The person that they write about in the book was not a real person. She was a compilation of some other women that he had been involved with in his life. But she lived to be almost 100 years old. She won so many medals of honor from many countries, including the United States. She did a lot for the French Resistance. Ariel Lawhan and some others have said her name deserves to be a household name. So you're kind of doing yourself a favor if you read this book and kind of give tribute to her life. She was really incredible.
It sounds incredible. Just a story even about a strong woman like
I
that,
love it.
right? But
Always,
then
always.
to know, and this type of character, I feel like I've
Mhm.
read a number of French Resistance female heroine
Right.
novels.
Right.
And
Right.
at first, when I read about this, I'm like, okay, I think I've
Okay.
read this story. But based on
Well,
what you're telling me, we haven't. And I almost think we can't read enough of these stories.
right.
It's a huge accomplishment that there were so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
strong women
Yeah.
working for the resistance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've read this story in some incarnation. You haven't read this story though. I don't think any of us have read this story. I'm kind of ashamed of myself. It took me this long to find it. I feel like I should have read it. I don't know why it took me so long to find it. I don't know why. I guess you can't read
Well,
everything.
we're lucky to have a great librarian like you to come on the show and bring it to our attention. So now
I guess
we can right that wrong and read this book.
we can. Yeah, book groups have read it, loved it. I mean, groups love Frozen River. Book groups love Codename Hélène. She also wrote one called I Was Anastasia, which is going to tie into another book that hopefully we're going to speak about soon. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Okay, so you said that you listened to this on Libby,
I
to the
did.
audiobook.
I did.
And
Yeah.
you had a little note that you should keep listening because the author speaks about it at the end.
Yes. Yeah. Do not stop before you listen to the author's note. Now, the author doesn't read her note, but she's got some very heartfelt sentiments about this. It means a lot to her to give these women the attention. This, like I said, this lady lived to be almost 100. She died in 2011, just a little bit short of her 99th year, I think. So she was within, reaching distance of 100, but remarkable life. And I think we owe it to some of these folks to know them, to know their
So
story.
I haven't read this one yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I
Yeah.
did read Frozen River. I was
Right.
very moved by it
Right.
and
Right.
surprised by some of the history that I didn't know, right? So that in-depth history perspective.
Right.
Frozen River also had some interesting spicy
A little bit
parts.
of spice. There's a touch of spice in this one, not very much. It's more hinted at. It's not overly flagrant, and it's always within the context of she loves her husband and he loves her back. I mean, it's just this wonderful support story. I did listen to it, wonderfully read. However, it's not linear. It goes back and forth quite a bit. And I thought maybe I should have read it, or maybe I should have had the book handy that I could, refer back sometimes, because it's
Oh,
really, really well done as a read, spoken word. But there were times I'd have to be like, wait a minute, now which era are we in? Because it really did go back and forth quite a bit. Could be a little confusing, maybe. I don't know. And there were some double crossing and people going by more than one name. It might have been helpful to have a print copy to refer. It could have been. Not necessary. It didn't take away from the experience, but the overall experience, incredible.
awesome. I'm definitely adding this to my must-read list.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you mentioned that Ariel Lawhan, the author, also wrote
Yes.
something about
Yes.
Anastasia.
Yes, she wrote I Was Anastasia, of course, from the Russian royal family. Well, so that ties into one of the other books called The Kitchen Boy. Yes. Okay. So this is a really short historical fiction. I know very little about the Russians. I'm ashamed to say. I don't know if a lot of us know a lot about the Romanovs. But this is told by their kitchen boy, the kitchen help. He's then an elder, as he's telling the story, he's an elderly man now living in Lake Forest, Illinois. Don't want to give a whole lot of spoilers here, but he's established a life here, but people didn't know who he was. So he's telling his granddaughter as the story's unwinding about how these things went. He
Wait,
had
so he's living his life in Illinois,
Right.
and people have
Very
no
elderly.
idea
right.
he was part of the staff of the czars of
Right,
Russia.
right.
Wow.
And he was
okay.
he was a little boy at the time. He has a lot of loyalty and a lot of love for this family. Yes, they were, again, flawed individuals. it seemed to be a really good love match. Alexandra was the carrier of hemophilia. Their son, which, the young man who would have been the heir apparent to the Tsar, I'm not sure, Tsaritsa, I'm not sure how you pronounce those things, to be honest. He would have been the next Tsar, but he was strictly severely hemophiliac. The mother here was Alexandra, who's pictured here, was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria, and Queen Victoria's family had the gene for hemophilia. There's a lot of that in Queen Victoria's family, so that's how that happened. But there were 4 daughters, and then this young son who was very sickly. Nicholas apparently kind of misread the mood of the Russian people, the Tsar. People say in retrospect that he kind of caused his own downfall. He caused the downfall because he was so out of touch with what people were thinking and wanting. He was trying to be an autocrat. He actually was a good leader. He was a good man. He seemed to be a good family man. They were a very lovely but flawed family. But, the revolution came along, and the Bolshevik Revolution was not really kind to him. And he maybe could have done some things differently. Maybe he really couldn't have. It's hard to say, in retrospect. But
he had his own let them eat cake moment.
Yeah. And it's not a long story, but it does pack a lot in there. So then, of course, the daughter, Anastasia, the youngest daughter of the 4 daughters, is rumored to have survived because they were murdered in 1918 by the Bolsheviks. And this kitchen boy is reportedly the last person who saw them before they were kidnapped and then assassinated, I guess you could say, the whole family. But the rumor is Anastasia, the youngest one, survived. The rumor is that she ended up here. So there is someone who has claimed to be Anastasia who lived in this country. I don't know that it was ever proven, but that's where the I Was Anastasia story by Ariel Lawton would come in. I've not read it. I would like to read it because I think it's probably very good. But I remember when this Anastasia person came forward, that might have been the early 80s. And I don't know if it was ever proven with DNA or anything of that nature, to be honest. I think that's part of the mystery. Was she really Anastasia from the Romanov family? I guess I don't know. But the story that this young boy, the kitchen boy, is narrating as he's a young person and talking about going and getting food from a different place, and the soldiers were super disrespectful to the disgraced Romanov family. They were very gracious, graceful. He really loved working for them. They treated him very well by all accounts. This little kitchen boy did, but awful things happened. The political environment had turned, and the Romanovs misled it, and it caused their horrible demise. Again, though, who's to say? Could they have done anything different? Could they have changed it? I guess that's one of the questions.
Yeah, and it was not a pretty revolution.
It was not.
I know I've heard some stories about Rasputin,
and he plays it. Yeah, he was a friend of Empress Alexandra. He was kind of her muse. That maybe didn't work in her favor either. He had told her he could cure the hemophilia for the son, so she kind of kept him around. He was maybe having more influence than was actually good for the royal family, so that caused them quite a few problems. It's really kind of sad because, again, they seemed like this very loving family, very dedicated. They were living through a lot of hardships. They were really, really living in disgrace, but had a lot of kept up with the love, kept on being good to their servants. It's just really sad. Could it have been different? I guess that's a lot of things. Could it have been different? But it's a very, very compelling story, and it isn't very long. So, if you're looking for a little bit of historical fiction, Codename Hélène is longer, to be honest. It's a longer story. It depends what you're in the mood for. If you just want kind of a short, really powerful bit of history that maybe we don't know much about, as I said, I don't. The kitchen boy would probably do that for you. And possibly, yeah.
I had never given thought to all of the staff that would support a royal family, right? So
exactly.
When this family met their demise,
right.
What became of the staff? Were they imperiled too, or just cut loose into the wind? Or
well, so you have to assume another identity because you can't be associated with them, really. It's not to your benefit to be associated with them. So how that all happened is pretty interesting, pretty good story. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Another great recommendation. Okay, cool. Well, let's move to The Door-to-Door Bookstore by Carson Henn.
So this, again, very short book. This is the one that we're doing here at the library for our November book discussion. That was a little bit intentional because it is short, and we're thinking at that time of year people are starting to become more busy. The holidays are approaching, things like that. they might be shying away from a really large book. This is a really sweet little book. It was written in German. It is set in Germany. We don't have a lot of books like that, at least not in our book discussion collection. Again, one of the bookstore, library, book loving kind of books. We have a lot of those in our book discussion collection. We just kind of realized that the other day because we categorize by genre our book discussion kits, if folks know about those. We have about 175-ish or so kits. And we were kind of just sorting them into rough genres, mysteries, romances, historical fiction, general fiction. And then we kind of said, well, we've got a lot about books and libraries. So we just have a category called bookstores and libraries because we have a fair amount. But you know what? It speaks to the magic of books. Most of us don't need a lot of urging to go into that.
Yeah.
And this was a solid contender. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and the
it's
locations that we appreciate, right? Like a bookstore,
Right,
a library,
Yeah.
those are happy places.
Yeah, the comfort level, the power of a book to bring people together. We're loving that. This is a nice elderly gentleman who delivers books to people in this German community. He picks books out for them, usually at their request. He'll wrap it up in paper very formally because it's worthy of the respect of wrapping the book up and being polite and delivering it. So he's a throwback. He loves the books. He loves matching a person with a book. He loves delivering the book. He has his route. At one point, a little girl joins him, a 9-year-old girl who's kind of been keeping an eye on him, joins him on the route, and they form a beautiful friendship. Little girl and an older man. And when she starts following him, he said, "You don't know me. I could be a horrible person. I'm a stranger." "No, I've been watching you. You're okay." So I mean, she's just got this confidence that he's a nice man and he just takes books to people and makes them happy. And some of the people, he goes into a little bit of the lives of the people he delivers to. A lot of those people are people who never leave their house. That's why he's delivering.
It's like a homebound delivery service from the library.
It is. See, I hadn't thought that. That's kind of the parallel. Except that you're much more outgoing and you're much more, but some of these people just barely open their door to him and that's it. And, hand the book through the door kind of thing. But he's a very, very sweet man, very elderly, has worked in this bookstore forever. He tries to get the younger employees at the bookstore to read. They kind of end up with like community service kids that are forced to work there because of part of their schooling. And he tries to find a book that will convert them to reading because some of them don't really want to read. They just want to, they're doing their time because it's better than some of the things they'd have to do as a volunteer, but there's not a lot of love there. But he kind of makes it his mission to put a book like in front of their volunteer work. Maybe this one will intrigue them. It's just kind of neat because he's always trying to find the book. He knows one lady doesn't like books with green on the cover. This one only wants happy endings. This one wants this one. He's a great reader's advisory person. He's fantastic like that. And the respect to take a book, wrap it up very specially like a precious thing, and take it. It's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool.
And I love that commitment to bringing that resource to people that otherwise wouldn't have access. And it kind of reminds me of, help me out. Do you know it's the book woman of?
The book woman of Troublesome Creek.
Yes.
Like the pack horse librarians who took those things to the people in the Appalachian. Yeah. That's that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that story.
Great story. Yeah, those are, and again, true stories. And the Give Her Stars is the other one that covers those pack horse librarians. Those are so good. Both of them are so good. And I mean, because we assume you can go anywhere and buy a book or borrow a book or find a book or something to read. Not when you lived in the hollows of Appalachia, and the hills are washing away and you don't have transportation and you really barely can put food on the table. A book was really a luxury to those folks and to the people in this book too. The book is really kind of a lifeline, and this gentleman himself, even though he doesn't spend a ton of time with them, they know he cares. They know he's going to bring them a book at some point. And they know he's going to have chosen it with a lot of their likes in mind. It's not just, here's just any old book, kind of like you said, our homebound service who does, remarkable work, finding the right book for the right person. You can speak to that. I think others could speak to that as well. They are so caring about finding you the right book. So if anybody wants a book in this community, there's no reason to be without a book. We'll bring them to you. And like this gentleman brought them, just like you said.
So this book is set in Germany?
This is set in Germany. Mm-hmm.
So you get a flavor for that kind of community,
like the town square, and the old buildings and things like that, which I think is kind of neat. When I think about it, we really don't have I can't think of another book like that in our book discussion kit collection. So it brings an element that we don't have maybe as much of, but that's cool too.
And what era is it set in?
It's the present. It's contemporary. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So he's just a super throwback because that would be so rare. It might still exist out there somewhere, but it would be super rare. Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
beautiful.
He's
Okay,
charming.
the door-to-door bookstore. So if somebody checked out this book or
Yeah.
got access to this book, the book discussion at the library is happening in November.
November 20th, 6 p.m. It's a Thursday. We have lots of books near the front door. We have some large print, some regular print, a few books on CD if you want to listen. I don't know if it's on Libby. I have to say I don't know that I've checked. It's not a brand new book. It's actually from 2023. And this author is not someone we know much about. He writes predominantly in German and is published in Germany. So we don't have a lot of backstory on him, but he sells really well in Europe apparently, and he deserves to. It's a good story.
And a side note, I was reading a book about the importance of the translator, right? So if this book was written in German,
right.
It can't just be somebody that speaks German and speaks English. It has to be somebody that can understand
the nuances.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really good. I hope people will come to the discussion. We always have a great time at the book discussions. I can't even tell you, it's such a great example of civil discourse. You might not agree with the person next to you at the table, but people are always so polite, so friendly, and I hadn't thought about that. Or now that I came to the discussion, I look at this book differently, or I look at things differently, or they might tell us a little story from their past or a relationship. Or it's a great book. I can't talk enough about our book group either. And I know some of these folks pretty well. They're lovely people. I would wish for everyone to come and join our book discussion at some point.
It's an open invitation, right?
It is. It's open. We would love everybody to show up.
Awesome.
Give it a whirl.
And after the book discussion, if you've got copies of this book, I would love one in my home drop.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we can get you. Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
For sure.
Okay. Speak to Me of Home. Speaking of home deliveries by Janine Cummins.
Yes. Okay. So this is the same author of American Dirt, which people might remember.
So
yes.
Good.
I think you remember it. Sounds like it. So she was kind of canceled. Remember how she kind of was canceled when that book first came out? Because she was telling a story that some people thought was not hers to tell, the immigration to this country. And I don't think it was true, but some people, I think, thought she was capitalizing on the fact that she looked like a person of color, if you know what I am referring to. But she really wasn't a Mexican national who had immigrated. I don't think that was important.
So did she get the story wrong?
No.
Okay.
But there were some people who just dismissed it out of hand. And this is during the pandemic. People were not always at their best during the pandemic, but somehow it was huge. And then all of a sudden she was exposed to be not. She never said that this was her story. In the case of American Dirt, she never said it was her story. She was just telling a story about having to leave a place because you can't stay, She never said it was her story. So it was really unfortunate. But ultimately, I think maybe it even drove the sales a little bit more. The canceling maybe worked in her favor down the line. So this is her next book, Speak to Me of Home. This one is set in Puerto Rico over a couple generations.
So are people going to be upset if she's not Puerto Rican?
Yeah, exactly. No, she actually does have roots more along that line. So I guess that's okay if you will.
But I don't think you should have to.
I know. Well,
to tell a story.
Well, so you remember. Well, I don't know if you remember. You're probably too young. Back in the day, that book came out, A Million Little Pieces, by that gentleman who told it as if it was his biography. His name was Fry. Last name was Fry, F-R-E-Y. A Million Little Pieces. He told it as if this were his story. He presented it as his biography. Well, except none of it was true. Most of it was made up. He sold a lot of books. Actually, I never read it, but it was called A Million Little Pieces. Maybe mid-'80s, maybe later. That I thought is probably worthy of canceling when you are misrepresenting things completely.
Not a fan of misrepresentation.
No. Janine Cummins did not do that with American Dirt. And she's not doing anything like that here. She's telling a multi-generational story starting in Puerto Rico in the 1890s. Very fortunately for this one, there is a family tree in front of the book. And I read this one because there's some names that are kind of similar. I'm like, wait a minute, which generation is this person and whose sibling is that and whatever, whose brothers are these? I mean, it's not that it's that many characters, but sometimes if you don't read it maybe in one line, it's not linear. If you don't read it in one session, and it's too long to read in one session, if you come and go with it, you might need refreshing on who's who and which era you're in. But it's really good. It ends up being, and it was, I don't know, this one has not had the attention I think it's kind of a under the radar book. I don't know why, because she's a pretty prominent author. It's gotten some good reviews, but it really hasn't found its market. Now it did only come out in May of this year, so it may be
Oh,
slowly,
it's brand
building.
new. Okay.
It's new. This is the newest by far of any of the books. I think maybe it'll find its footing. It's a really good story. It ends up talking about where do you call home? How do you go back home? Some of the people had to leave their land. Some of them were forced. Sometimes it was a cultural shock. Some of folks couldn't cope and went back to a place of origin. There's a hurricane in the present day that is the basis for the current day story. I didn't know why it was called Speak to Me of Home. I had trouble remembering the title. I just kept massacring the title. It's like, oh, I forget what it's called. But there's a point in time near the end where someone says those words, Speak to Me of Home. There's a storytelling episode where they're trying to help someone find their footing again. It's a really kind of neat family story. It's told from mostly female perspectives. I was going to say, it's the definite female line of progression. There's certainly men, there are husbands, ex-husbands, brothers, fathers, and things like that. But it's definitely told from the female perspective of three generations of women. Yeah, it's
And
really good.
Is it the first generation she migrates to the continental U.S. and
Let me
so
think
is
about that.
separated from Puerto Rico and then
Yeah.
has a different experience of her home than the other
She
generations?
ends up staying there, but the second generation has to migrate. The first generation ends up in some sort of disgrace, and I won't say too much because at some point they do kind of put it back together again. But there's some really tough times, and so they are not who they used to be. That first generation. Then their daughter is sent away to work at a naval base because it's Puerto Rico, so it's American. There's lots of American influence there, but she ends up, the second generation comes to this country, has a lot of trouble here. For instance, there's a country club membership. Her husband and kids are allowed in. She's not so much, mid-60s, because she doesn't look like they do. And her husband never really understands. That causes a lot of trouble in the family. The kids are conflicted, It's complicated stuff, but very well written. And super helpful to have the family tree in the front, like I said, because sometimes I'm like, wait, it's Rafaela, it's Ruth, it's Daisy, it's all these women, and then there's Benny and there's Carla. I like who is who at some point. I had to at some point stop. And again, it's not linear. So many books these days are not linear. It's just a thing.
I think I read a blurb too that the generation that came to the continental U.S. sort of tried to just be English solely, right? Like shove down the Spanish that they were used to speaking,
Right.
push away the Puerto Rican cultural things in their life, right? To fully embrace what was accepted as American, and then that leads challenges.
It is, but at that point in time, as you're alluding to, at that point in time, it really was best to try to pretend you're a white American, because to be not in the mid 60s, not the best thing, caused some problems. So, yeah. I mean, eventually, it's a really lovely family tale, and the generations are very supportive of each other at some point. But, they've got some moments, It's not like there's all, like, warfare exactly in the generations, but there's misunderstandings, and there's, I can't comprehend what you're thinking or feeling, and life is complicated,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And I only imagine it gets more complicated too when you separate from your origin point, right?
Sure. Yeah. So the problem with the one who came to this country, she had married a gentleman named Peter Brennan. Well, you look at the name and she's, Ruth Brennan. Oh, that sounds whatever, except when they saw her at the country club. Oh, well, she's going to have to use the showers that belong to the staff. She can't use because the other ladies wouldn't want her showering in their locker room, things of that nature. So
can we please learn from that?
Could we please? Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. We've got one more. The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. All right. We're bringing the spice.
Well, yeah, there's some spice here. This one was an editor's pick by Goodreads for best mystery thriller and suspense. There is some spice here. It is a love story. There's a lot of suspense. I have to say, it takes twists I did not see coming. The love of Emma's life. Emma's the main character. She's been married to this wonderful man. She has a daughter. She has a dog. They have a life. They have this whole thing. She's a research kind of biologist, really into marine animals. They've been married, I believe, 10 years at the point her husband realizes he doesn't even know her real name. He finds out by accident he doesn't know who she really is.
Oh
She's
man.
tried really hard to hide and build a new life, put some things behind her that were really unpleasant. At first, when I'm reading this, I'm not liking her a lot because I think she's being duplicitous. I think she's taking advantage of her husband's good nature, of his love, and all of these things. That's not really how it went, basically. She really had to start over because she's running from some really awful things and believing some things that turned out not to have been true. Um, it's really complicated, but it's very good. It's very twisty. The love of her life is maybe not what who you think it might be either. You're going through this and you think she's involved with this actor, very prominent actor. Well, she is, but not for the reason you're led to believe or that your mind takes you to. It's not that at all. It's a different relationship than what you might have thought with this very well-known actor. But when her husband finds out, he of course assumes something different. It's not that at all. And it's a very long time before he finds out. But again, now this man is very supportive of her, very loving. But he says at one point, I've held you at night for 10 years and I didn't even know your name. We have a child together, a dog, a house. Who are you?
Do they get beyond that? Like, can you recover from that?
Yeah, she's part of the thing that's been so traumatic for her is she had been led to believe something that really wasn't necessarily true. And she has spent most of her adult life kind of beating herself up for something that really didn't happen the way she was told it happened. And she wasn't the awful person someone told her she was. A lot of suspense here. I waited. This was a really big book in January of 23. It came out in 23. It was a great GMA book club pick. I had heard about it. And this one too, I waited a really long time to get it on Libby to listen. I liked it. I like listening to it. It's very well done. It's really good. But again, when you first start, I'm thinking, I just don't know if I like her. She's really not being honest with this man. And they keep alluding to the secret. And you think it's something different. You think she's really betraying him. She's hurting him. He's so good to her. She's got this little daughter at risk. It's not quite the way it is.
So does it turn around? Do you come to appreciate her or care for her?
I ended up liking her a great deal, feeling really bad for her and things that had happened. And actually admiring her by the end and thinking, she prevailed. Oops, spoiler, she prevailed. I mean, it's not as bad as you think, but there's a touch of spice. They're not overly spicy, but it's a love story a little bit too. Yeah.
And a love story with her husband.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so I get the fact that like maybe the dog wouldn't care if she was who she said she was.
No.
But her husband, it's interesting.
It's a tough
How
one.
do you come around?
He finds some papers when he's looking for something else. He finds some papers in their dining room and he's like, who is that person? He thinks her name is Emma. It's not even her real name. It's a name and an identity she assumed. Because she was party to something really awful, but she wasn't a party to it the way someone presented it to her that she did. Like they were kind of presenting to her that she had like a break, and she did some awful things. And they were able to convince her she did some awful things. And I probably shouldn't say much more than that, but yeah. So yeah.
It just made me think.
I have to stop and really talk in circles around that. Yeah.
Sometimes we should have you read to us, like as not only recommend the books, but also have a little bit of a story time, right?
Yeah.
Where you could read a chapter or something.
I really liked this one. It started, like I said, it started slow and I just didn't know if I liked her. And then as I really came to feel so bad for her, it's like, she really thinks she is just the worst person that ever walked the face of the earth. That wasn't true. It really wasn't true. Some other people had taken advantage of situations with her.
Okay, start slow, but you're saying keep going. It's a good recommendation.
Keep going. I thought too, I don't know if I like this, but I've waited a long time to get this on Libby, so I am going to go on with it, and maybe, but you know what? I've done that in the past, Tina, and sometimes it doesn't work out and it never does redeem itself. But this one really did. This one really did. Yeah, I can't say that enough. It really did.
Awesome. So that was The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. We also talked about Codename Hélène by Ariel Lawhon and Speak to Me of Home by Janine Cummins and The Kitchen Boy by Robert Alexander and Door to Door Bookstore by Carson Henn. These are great recommendations. I'm looking forward to reading all of them.
Fantastic.
Tim just commented, oddly enough, it turns out the dog cared more about her being duplicitous than her husband. Spoilers, Tim. Spoilers.
Tim, I'm not sure Tim read the book. I don't know for sure that he did, but maybe he did. Maybe he did. I can't say. I don't know. No, the dog was super sweet too. The dog was. He's had a really cute original name. He's named after an author. He's got a first and a last name. The dog does. It's super cute. Yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes, it's pretty
Laura,
cool.
thank you so much for joining me and having this
Thank
book
you.
conversation.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate recommendations and already looking forward to having you back next month.
I can't wait till next month.
Viewers, let us know what you're reading. If you've read any of these books and would like to share a recommendation, leave it in the comments or tell us what else that you're reading and share your recommendations with everyone. You've
Love to
been
see it.
watching Coffee on the Coast, this episode of Book Banter. My guest, Laura Schreiner from Manitowoc Public Library. I'm your host, Tina Prigge. Happy reading, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye bye.